Greetings, y'all. Justin here. A technical disclaimer before today's episode. Sadly, a portion of my interview with today's guest, John Verbocy, didn't transfer over, so the full interview is cut short. I still wanted to post the 24 minutes that we did complete, and I'm very sorry about that. And my hope is that not only will you still get to enjoy the insight we captured, but we can have John on in the future to speak more about taking risks and the science of the supernatural and lifestyle design. Sorry again for the inconvenience, and I hope you enjoy what we did capture in my conversation today with John. Welcome to Living Once Twice, a lifestyle design and personal adventure podcast. My name is Justin. Come with me as I'm here to help you chart your course for creating the fulfilling life you desire. Join me as every Wednesday we'll dive into the inspiring guest stories, remarkable science, and useful strategies to help you create the momentum you need to take action towards designing your dream life. Remember, your dream life is waiting for you. It's time to go for it. You deserve it. I'm very excited to bring on today's guest, John Verbocy. John is an entrepreneur, artist, wellness advocate, and he has an understanding about how we all can work with the laws of the universe. And that's a little bit of what we're going to chat about today. John, welcome to the show. How are you doing, brother?
Very good, Justin. How about yourself?
I cannot complain. Very excited to have this opportunity to dive into your story and the great insight that you have to share with our listeners. But before we begin, I got to give the people some context. John and I, we went to school together, man, middle school all the way back, Emmett Belknap, and have just stayed in contact. And recently we reconnected and had, man, I want to say about a 2-hour chat about building businesses and spirituality, mind, body, soul alignment, essentially all the things that we didn't learn in school. So I'm just grateful for you to be on the show and to have this conversation with you today.
Same here, Justin. Thank you.
Yes. So, John, let's get into it because you have a lot of great insight to share with our listeners, especially regarding taking risks, manifestation, and how we all can really liberate our minds to unlock that limitless potential that we have. Before we dive deeper into that, can you just take us back? Tell us more, John, about just who you are, who's John Verbocy, what's your background, where you're from, and what was your transition like into the real world?
I'm from Lockport, New York. Cold winters, But I started a big changing point in my life that I think, I can't go on to talking about anything else other than, I survived cancer twice. So I had leukemia ALL twice, once in 87 and once in 96. That was God intervening in my life at that point and showing me and putting things into focus at a very young age. So as I grew up, and got into middle school, I didn't last in school. I think I made it into ninth grade before I dropped out. But I got my GED by the time I was 16, I think, and then I went to Trocaire Community College. I got a certificate in phlebotomy. I worked at Roswell Park. I was an intern there for 6 months, and they offered me a full-time position. But when I was younger, I was more of a hippie type, and I didn't want to get stuck into the system. And the money definitely wasn't right for phlebotomy. So I ended up doing contracting for about a year. And then my brother opened a pizzeria. He offered me a percentage on it originally, and I told him no again just because I didn't want to get stuck into the system. You know how it is. When I was young, I didn't see the bigger picture yet, but I paid for that dearly because I ended up working contracting for about maybe 8 months, and I started working for my brother, and I didn't take 50% ownership in that pizzeria till I think 6 years. And that's pretty much what changed my life. My brother in a really, really big way. He was, he's older than me. So Steve always had my best interest in mind, and he had a different vision because he realized that working for somebody was kind of a trap, and he saw that at a really young age. And my father, he worked at GM for 27 years, and he worked, it wasn't a rarity, 85-hour work week. I mean, my dad worked 6 days a week, so I got to see, what hard work and driven people could actually do if you are willing to put the work in. But as I grew older, I did realize that it wasn't all about the work either, you know. You can cut corner, well, not even cut corners. You can use your mind to elevate your business rather than your hard work and effort. But the pizzeria is really what changed my life as far as business was concerned, because I got to manage underneath my brother for those 5 years, and that taught me a lot. Because when I was younger, I had anger issues, as I think most of us do, because we're still full of that piss and vinegar, you know, and our hormones. We haven't worked it out yet, you know. And I didn't see my anger issues till probably I found meditation when I was probably 20 years old, but I didn't really practice it a ton until probably about 7, 8 years ago. That's when it became daily practice in my life. But I was able to see what my anger, you know, again, when I was able to step back and look at myself and see what my
Hmm.
anger was doing in my management style, you know, I could get things done and I'd get them done efficiently, but I was an asshole. I'd ruin people's day for no reason, you know, and it was just because of my own insecurities and the hate that I was hanging on from whatever it may be. And I mean, I've seen a lot of struggle in my life, but who hasn't? I don't dwell on that type of thing, you know. Again, it's like the obstacles they're put in our way to
Yeah.
have us look at ourselves at the end of the day, you know. We're constantly being called to look at ourselves, and most of the times nowadays it seems that, you know, I know it was for a long time in my life where I'd look at the external things in my life and put blame on those things, but not
Yeah.
ever looking in the mirror and pointing the finger, you know,
And
because
that's one of the things, John, that I appreciate about you is that you talk about this in your journey and in the conversation that you and I had about kind of that inside out work that you did. Now, there's so much in your story that you shared, everything from overcoming cancer, the route you took to which for many people, when you talk about the system, many of us are programmed along the way. We go to college or we go to school, we go to college, get a degree, go to get a job, and we go on our merry way. And you talk about the route that you took, John, that you didn't want to be stuck in the system. Can you share more about what that meant to you or how you define that? Because I think that's going to resonate with a lot of the listeners out there. Because on this show, we talk so much about reimagining our life, building our dream life, that it doesn't need to necessarily be the script that
yeah.
society hands us. So for you, when you say stuck in the system, what did that look like or mean to you that you were working against?
I think the ideal of the utopian society, you know, that it can be done in a different way. And I think when you get put on paper and you're getting a paycheck and things like that, you're on that treadmill. A lot of the times I think it feels that we're stuck on there and we're not, you know. And I sensed that at a really young age, but that was because I wanted bigger things, and I knew that if I was an employee, I could never get to that level of what I thought success was. And now that I'm older, it's way different, you know. But back then, I mean, my drive was I worked 90 hours a week. I had 2 years straight where I didn't take a single day off. I worked from 7 in the morning to 11 at night, ten
Mm,
o'clock on Sundays. So it was like, you know, I did that for 2 years straight. And as soon as I paid off my loan that I had outstanding, and that was on a handshake deal, and I paid that loan off that day. The day I paid it off, I sold the business for a $20,000 loss, but it freed up 20 hours of my week. Well,
mhm.
more like 30. But, you know, that was a big issue in my life at that point, and I had to do what I had to do.
All that work, was it, were you trying to climb up a ladder? Were you doing it just
Absolutely.
because you it was programmed in you that, "Hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. Being a business owner, I'm supposed to cash in my evenings, cash in my weekends." Like, what was feeding that behavior? What was behind that?
I would say that's the idea of success, you know. I mean,
Mm,
what we envision success to be. And, you know, realistically, now that I've gone through it and I've put work in for business, you really can't get that other side of it. If money is your focus for business, I would say it's very difficult to avoid that, you know, the amount of hours that you have to work on a week to week basis. I think that to establish something, you have to put in your whole heart, and
mhm,
you have to really put in the hours that no one else wants to do. I mean, if I didn't work those 90 hours, and I used to say when I was a kid, like, I'm working 90 hours a week because I'm going to double down on whatever the normal 40-hour work week is. So I had in my head, if I do double the amount of work, I'll be able to retire in 15 years instead of 30, you know? So I
Mhm.
guess that would have been the driving force, but always knowing there was more that I was capable of doing. I think that that's another thing that's just kind of the person that I am. But I can be lazy, and everybody can. But I always feel that I've never done enough in a day. You
Mhm.
know, and I always feel I could do more.
Now, John, you talked about once you sold that business, even though you took that loss, you were like, "Hey, I'm freed up now." So for you, what was it like then to be freed up, and how did you, I guess, you use that time, that opportunity that you had back?
I ended up focusing on one of the other call centers instead of the pizzeria. I ended up going into the call center full time, and I stepped back from the pizzeria, so I dropped my schedule really down to about 50 hours a week. But I saw the value in the call centers and learning those models. And again, it was the right decision. And at the time, it didn't feel right. I was scared, and now I'm not nearly as scared when I do anything. But then I was a lot younger, and I was really scared. I was afraid of failure, and it did fail. It ended up failing, but I ended up recouping it through other means, and it ended up working out. But again, when you're in it, you just got to keep pushing through it, because it's like there's so many walls that you have to face in business that it's like, it's never easy. I would say it's never easy, but it gets easier. Our bosses that we worked for at Geno's in the Lockport Mall and La Rosa's out in Niagara Falls, they told us that it would take 10 years, and like I never believed that. I was always like, no way. And they were saying that it takes 10 years to really establish a business. They hit it right on the head. I mean, the two really successful businesses I have on this earth, well, one's at 17 years and the other's at 10. And it's just so true, but it never stops. It's not like when you hit that 10-year mark, you hit the brakes. You don't. It's just a little bit easier. You don't have as much stress.
Why is it 10 years, John? Like, why was that the kind of the magic number? What is it about 10 years? What happens over the course of those years that tends to be a sweet spot, would you say?
I think it's just how much you learn, but your sales increase. That's the main thing with the restaurant. It takes 10 years. Really, I mean, it was really 10 years before you're an established household name, and
Mhm.
that's, I think, what they were talking about more because it's pizzerias. But again, we are kind of a staple in Lockport now, and I'm blessed to say that. But what, there's no better way you feed people
Yeah.
and you meet people. And like, that's another thing I love about hospitality and restaurants too, because the customers, you get to know them. And, that's one thing I do miss about being in the pizzeria because I haven't been there. It's got to be 8 years since I stepped away from the pizzeria, but my brother takes care of that and I handle everything else. So it worked out really well.
Yeah, John, being a full-time entrepreneur and what you do, and you talked a little bit about that fear of failure, maybe mistakes that you might have made or encountered along the way. For those out there who have that vision of wanting to build a business themselves, are there any rookie mistakes, pitfalls that are common that you've seen entrepreneurs make that you would share as being a word of advice of here's a common mistake many entrepreneurs make. I made this. Here's what I would advise for you to do or think about so that you don't end up having to learn that lesson like I did.
Don't spend your money, feed your business, put it back into your business. At the end of the day, you spend money, it's a waste. Materialism is never going to buy you anything, it's not going to get you anything. I fell trapped to that for years, and I wasted a lot of money on stuff like that. And then the older I got, I realized that it doesn't matter. And if you live below your means consistently, you could be making $1 million a year, live off of $50,000, and pump that money back into your business because it's always going to be fruitful. And you think to build generational wealth, it takes that one generation that's going to make that sacrifice for the rest. So again, you can build something very strong and stable. You just keep pumping that money back into your business, whether that means fixing the interior. I mean, there's so many ways to increase business, even if it's just the atmosphere of the office or the restaurant, but consistently pump money into your business.
That's really great
Yeah.
advice, John, there. And you were speaking a second ago about that by giving back and pumping back into the business helps you to build a strong, stable business. But I also know from you that you also have to build your own self up as an entrepreneur, your
Absolutely.
mind. And so for you, how were you building yourself from the inside out to take on that entrepreneurial mindset? What did you have to cultivate in order to thrive in that atmosphere, owning your own business?
I hate to say this, but like your feelings have to be put to the side sometimes. You just got to sometimes do it. That's the big thing. Like, yeah, it sucks. It sucks at the end of the day owning your own stuff, Your own businesses. It's a drag sometimes because your heart is completely in it.
So what did that look like for you, John? How did you, whether it's feelings, emotions, ego, were there affirmations that you would tell yourself? Were there things that you would say to help you kind of balance that so that
At the end of the day, it's just getting out there and doing it, Justin, and I know how cliche that sounds, but like just do it. Because the
Mhm.
more you do chisel that block down, it's crazy how fast time goes by, and before you know it, you've built something right before your eyes. Again, sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you don't even see it, but as long as you just keep grinding through it every single day, and you got to put your whole heart into something too, because when you don't believe in something, it'll never succeed. And that's a big portion of being an entrepreneur and owning your own businesses. I mean, you just got to keep grinding at it. It'll be fruitful, but you have to believe in it. You have to wholeheartedly believe in your project, or 9 times out of 10, it's going to fail. But that kind of goes with anything. If you believe in something, it'll come to fruition. You just can't give up on it.
Yeah, and I truly appreciate you talking about that and say that. And what I find extraordinary is how you talk about sometimes you have to build something even though it may not be there in the physical reality. And I heard this recently on a interview Big Sean was doing with Jay Shetty, where he talks about there's two realities that exist, and this is kind of reminding me of what you were getting at. There's a reality that lives out here that we're all a part of, but then there's also this reality inside of each of us, and you have to have a belief or a faith in your vision in order to make that reality that lives inside of you, I guess, a reality in this other world that we're all a part of. So I appreciate you talking about that piece because for many of us, we struggle. We struggle to take action on our visions, on our dreams. And I guess, why do you think, John, that many of us struggle with that belief piece of believing that we are capable of so much more, that we are capable of becoming business owners, entrepreneurs, chasing our aspirations, that limitless potential that we have? Why do you feel so many of us just, whether it's struggle with that, I guess, taking action or moving forward towards those goals we have?
I think in part, I have, and I'm only speaking from my experience. I think that it's difficult sometimes to get past the whole victimization thing, because we feel that we're held down in every aspect, in so many aspects of life. And I'll tell you, when you're going through the business world and not knowing anything about it, I've felt like that a million times. But once we can get away from that trap and see beyond it, I mean, we have to see that we're limitless, but it's really easy to make excuses. And I've made a million of them, but it's all forced me to look at myself. And when we can truly look at ourselves and realize that we hold the power, then we can actually accomplish something and find the solution of how we can change ourselves, our thoughts, and our actions in order to achieve what we're trying to achieve. But, when we look around, and I used to blame my parents for shit, you know what I mean? And it's like, once I could get past, it's basically up to me now, and no one, I don't deserve anything. It's nothing's going to be a handout. That was a big portion of it growing up, and that,
Mhm.
again, that was kind of part of becoming a man too. But then when I came to that conclusion, I could really start working on myself, and I got away from that whole I'm this, I'm that. And that's one of the issues I've dealt with my whole life, because it's always I'm this, I'm that. And I think that's your ego, and then pride gets in the way. And, again, we make excuses for ourselves to fail. And when we make that excuse, it becomes reality. But
Yeah, and I wanna go further on that, John. I think this is really powerful what you're talking about is sometimes we cling to these old identities and experiences, traumas that we've gone through in the past, and it's almost like an anchor. It catches up and still weighs us down in this present moment where
absolutely.
things in the past, because we were younger, the circumstances were what they were. We didn't have that advocacy over ourselves. But here you and I are 34, 35 years young, where we don't have to let those old experiences, those old narratives write the script that we have for ourselves in the present and in the future. And I guess what I wanted to go further on was you talked about how you had to work on yourself. Earlier on, you were mentioning anger management and things that you had to work through.
Mm-hmm.
So what were some of the steps or the tools or even just the strategies that were a part of your process, John, of working on yourself to free you up to be able to really own yourself and own your own accountability, I guess, for the direction that your life was going to go in?
I think the ability to let go, the things we hold on to. And I think that God has helped me over the years in prayer and meditation to be able to do that. Because we hang on to so much and then it becomes us still. Joe Dispenza talks about it too. Because like we relive that moment when we think about the wrong we've done in our lives. And I've came to the conclusion in my life that it's like, why would I worry if it's something I can't control? And if it was the way it needed to be, then that's absolutely the way it's going to be. And I think that that helped free me in my life and group meetings. And I'll be honest, I mean, I went to AA meetings to help me get a handle on myself. And some of the stuff that I learned in there, it helped me free myself. Being
Yeah.
able to let things go because we're not that same person we were 5 years ago. Geez, we're not the same person we were a day ago.
Mhm.
We're always shifting and we're always turning into something better. And that's kind of the way I look at it too. It's like I needed to learn those terrible things in my life in order for me to look at myself and become a better person.
Mhm.
But I also had to be able to let those things go, all those bad things I've done in my life, because again, it'll consume you if you hold on to it. And then we kind of get addicted to that emotional charge. And then it's a cycle. And I've seen it with so many people. And it's sad to see because when you're in the cycle, and I know I've been in it a million times in my life too,
Mhm.
we can't even see that we're stuck on pause. And it's a sad thing to see, but it's up to us because, again, we can only control our thoughts and our actions. When we realize that, too, it's empowering, because we realize, again, it's up to us. It is only up to us. You as an individual, it is only up to you. But
John, that really resonates with me and a lot of different guests that we've had on this show and talked about the importance of, once again, it's inside out work. It's a lot of reprogramming. You were mentioning to Joe Dispenza and his work and how there's science to this. There's science to it, but also, John, I know with you, there's what people might call supernatural as well. And the existence of this unseen hidden force or universal forces and that chemistry of it with manifestation. So I guess I want to hear more from you about where does the science of the supernatural find its place in your lifestyle design?
I mean, every day is a practice. I meditate daily, I do breath work. But it's crazy because, when I first started to meditate, I saw a true value in it. I really did. And I didn't know how the mystical side could open up either. The supernatural realm, I guess you could call it. And I'm a very logical man.
Hey, y'all. Sadly, that is where my interview with John ends. As I mentioned, I hope you did get to enjoy my conversation that did transfer over before the technical glitch, especially regarding taking risks, manifestation, and how to unlock our infinite potential. So that is it for today's show. I would like to thank you for your presence and tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please show your support by sharing the Living Once Twice podcast on Instagram, LinkedIn, or wherever, and leaving us a review on iTunes. Reaching out to you all through the time and the space that separates us to say, remember, your dream life is waiting for you. Go for it. You deserve it. Catch you later on Living Once Twice.